Alright, am I back? I'm making noises, that's good. And then Chatterino will ultimately tell me if I still exist or not. Now I have to deal with all the shit that popped up when I started my computer. I see Chatterino's working. What do I have? I can see my mouse, which is really fucking awesome. Technically, I thought the echo was on my end to begin with. It's weird. Yeah. I'm still echoing. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let's just let's take a quick look and see if I can figure out. There's nothing. Oh, you know what? How's that? I bet that fixed everything. Have I got an upset because there a buzzing in your ears? Dislocation brought to you by yes. Okay, so I'll tell you what happened. So, I've got this digital interface which is awesome, and it plugs my various musical instruments into my computer. The new mic is going through the digital interface, which makes everything awesome. Is this going to be a long story? It could be. Yeah, I went digital. I'm a horrible sellout. That's weird. I don't think I'm streaming on Facebook anymore. Or on, I don't know. Shit. I don't even fucking care. I don't care. It's been enough. It's been enough. We're there. You see me, you hear me, that's all that matters. Alright, we'll try and salvage some of this ridiculousness. So, give me one sec to just sort of get some of my shit back where it needs to be. Get that, not that, that. I don't need that actually, I need that. Oh, actually, maybe I can use that. One sec. That says I'm online on Facebook, and well, it says sending data to Facebook. Facebook doesn't fucking work, so screw Facebook. All right, I'm gonna bring up my Twitch follow remover just in case somebody decides they want to hate mob me. That's a dumb thing, but fortunately, as a we used code cheat for Cheetos to get $5 off. All right, cool. Now I just need to get my Windows stuff back. I need my live stream stuff. Alright. The notes. And I need a browser tab. Good enough. Okay. We're essentially back after the restart. Apologies. Not my finest hour. And there is a couple of stupid little things I need to do here to make sure that things go better. Anyway, suffice to say, somebody changed something with my with the way that I get my stuff into OBS, and I don't know whether it was Restream or Reaper or Focusrite or something, but something went different, and now what was happening is I have two different views of what's coming in, so it was just weird. And I'm willing to bet that it was only echoing in one ear. That's how surreal this is. All right, I gotta change a couple of tiny little things, and then I'll be good to go. Everything else I'll just deal with as it comes. All right, you try so hard to be prepared, to do a good job, and then everything shits the bed. Now I have this really stupid looking mouse, which is annoying as all hell. But I can see, I can hear. New pants, no echo, life's good. Life is good. All right, so I'm just going to stop talking about what I was talking about, because clearly the reason why everything went south on me was Travis Scott. And let's see. Let's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about, and I don't know if I'm going to do this as like a longer series or not, but I want to talk about toxic masculinity and how how it hurts the fellas. Because, you know, there's so much of people complaining about toxic masculinity with regards to, you know, it being like, well, it's just the ladies are hating on us fellas and all that, which is just dumb garbage. It's completely, there's no merit to that. But define toxic masculinity. Okay. To me, toxic masculinity is a product of our patriarchal society that puts expectations on both genders, and it is done from the reason it's toxic masculinity and not toxic whatever you want to call it is toxic masculinity is one aspect of that overarching patriarchy. So you have expectations that men will be good providers, men will be good with their hands, men will be good at you know, all of these things, and the women will be good at staying home and making the chicken pot pies, that sort of stuff. That the negative side of how that masculinity manifests is the toxic masculinity part. This is an interesting topic for me. I was affected by it as I grew up as a girl, which allowed me to be sensitive and emotional with no judgment. Am I going to cry now? Man up, Joe. Man up is a strange example. But yes, so here's the thing about wasn't affected. Sorry. You weren't affected by it as you grew up as a girl. I think we all. So the thing about toxic masculinity is, the obvious thing that we always come to is like the whole Chad incel bullshit syndrome of like, you know, actually toxic male traits, and that's kind of where people think that the focus should be. To me, I think that the unnecessary societal shit around what masculinity is supposed to be and how men must fit this box affects us in a pile of different ways. So I'm going to give you an example. So I was a little child once upon a time, 5 years old. And at 5 years old, I was living in this place across the street from a school that had a skating rink. And I was skating there, and I was by myself. My sister had gone with me, but she left with friends, so I'm 5 years old, and I'm alone. And the sun starts to go down, and I just wanted to finish skating. So I did, and I had a great time. I was a terrible skater, but I enjoyed ice skating. It was cool. And then I noticed that, like, okay, I'm all alone. All right, I better get my shit together. And I'm cold, and all of a sudden behind me is the guy who was the janitor of the community center. So it was like school here, community center here, ice rink here. And the ice rink was technically the property of the community center, but we all used it. Anyways, and he's right there, and he's like, hey, kid, like, you look cold. Do you want to come up inside and warm up? And I was like, yes, I do. That's a fucking awesome idea. Frankly, I'm 5 years old by myself. Obviously, there were bigger issues at play. But I go with him, and he takes me into the community center, and we're warming up, and he gives me a Coca-Cola, and then he wanted to play a fun tickling game. You can guess where this is going. You probably guessed a long time ago where this was going. But his fun tickling game involved tickling his genitals. And I'm 5 years old, but I knew this was not okay. I knew that my parents would be angry at me if I was doing this. But I also knew that this was a nice man who gave me a Coke, and he was really nice, and he was letting me warm up, and it was a thing. And so he tickled me, and I tickled him for a little while, and then I was like, I'm gonna get going. And he was like, hey, no problem, you know, you're anytime you want to come back, and, you know, like, you can come visit me if you want to warm up, you know, if you want to play our tickling game again, like, you know, we can do that too, but just, you know, you're good. And I was like, hey, see ya, guy. And I went home, and I was really creeped out about the whole thing, and I didn't know what to make of it, because, again, I'm fucking 5. I knew something had happened, and I knew something had happened that wasn't right, but it didn't feel like a horrible thing when it was happening, and there was no violence, there was no uh, like there was obviously coercion, but it was effective coercion. It wasn't like do this or I'll kill your family. It was like, hey, no, we're having fun. Do you want a Coke? Right? So it was hard for me to put a finger at 5 years old on what I was feeling. And so I talked to my sister about it, who was a worldly 8. And what are we saying here? I had a feeling it would be hurt. This isn't a real man had. That is, if I wasn't a real man and had no feelings. Damn. No, thank you, sir. Yeah, no, thank you, sir would have been a really good answer. But, I'm 5 years old and dumb as shit, and I wanted a Coke. Anyways, I talked to my sister about it, and I was like, so this is what happened. I laid the whole story. And she, using the brilliant logic of the 8-year-old, she was like, yeah, you did a bad thing. You never want to tell mom and dad about it because they'll be really mad that this happened, and so just don't tell anyone. So I didn't. Until I was in grade 6, I was on my way to school. My mom was driving me. I was talking in sassy, gay, not no, it's okay. I figured I didn't get what that was about, but yeah. Either way, I certainly didn't take it like, oh, Kitty Jerkface is making fun of my trauma, which for the record isn't even really trauma, and I want to explain that in a second. But so I knew that it was wrong. I knew that it was bad. I shut up about it. Driving to school one day, and it was weighing on my mind. And this is 5-6 years after the fact, whatever. And we're driving down Crowchild Trail, and I look at my mom and I go, the janitor at the community center touched my penis when I was a kid, like not accidental, like. And she somehow did not drive us into the ditch. Nothing ever came of it, but at least I got it off my chest. And the reason I say it wasn't traumatic is because there was no violence, there was no threat. In no way did he come across as anything other than just a really nice guy doing really nice guy stuff. And at 5, I certainly didn't have the understanding of the world to know what was happening. And as I got older and started to sort of piece it all together, I was like, okay, that was a bad thing that happened, but could have been a whole lot worse, right? Dumbass 5-year-old kid all alone gets taken into a otherwise empty building by a grown adult who, with clear intentions, and that could have gone a whole lot fucking worse for me. One of the things I think is really interesting about this is how differently this would have been viewed if it was a woman who had done this to me. Maybe not at 5, but that, when we're talking about toxic masculinity, this story has sort of 2 facets to it, in my opinion. First and foremost was that idea that I should never talk about it. Yeah, my sister was wrong to say that, but at 8, all she had to go on was what society had taught her. And what society had taught her and what it had taught me was that I wasn't the victim here. I was a part of the bad thing that happened, and that's on me. And I need to just shut the fuck up and not get in trouble about it. That's horrifying in retrospect. And the other thing is, a guy did this to me, and a guy would be vilified. Had that story come out, it would have, and I happen to know that it would have stopped him from assaulting other people. Presumably, again, in the same very non-awful fashion, but I know that he offended again, and I know of at least one person who had the same sort of story as I did. In their case, it was a lollipop or something, and I was like, fuck, I got a can of Coke out of the motherfucker. Not the point of the story by any stretch, but his being a man would have been handled very differently than his being a woman. And I have a friend who was sexually assaulted by his mother's friend, and this was a woman, and he was a little bit older, and his whole thing, he felt like he was, you know, winning. This older woman was having sex with him at this young age, and society would be like, "You go, boy. Yeah, she's a little bit weird. That's probably not all right, but like, get some, get some." But he was being sexually assaulted by a fucking grown up, and yeah, MILF, exactly. Moms I love to fuck. What a fucking horrifying idea that shit is. And so that toxic masculinity that told me to shut the fuck up about it, told him to brag about it, and in both cases, nothing changed, right? I was quiet, so no one knew, so this guy got away with it. He was loud, and it was the stuff of bravado, and you know, the people he talked to about it, I'm assuming, would have been peers who would have been like, "Fuck yeah, bro." These are examples of the threat that this kind of toxic masculinity presents to men. I ended up not going through a whole lot of shit and abuse as a result of this experience. Like, it wasn't horrible for me, but it wasn't good. There was definitely lasting effect from it. Like I say, it wasn't as bad as if it had been a violent encounter, but I still had a lot of guilt that I carried with me. I still had a lot of confusion that I carried with me, and in future, you know, that situation popped up again in my, not like, you know, someone else doing this, although that also is true, but that experience became, you know, a tinged part of what I was experiencing in other ways, and affected my reaction to situations and things. So, like, I didn't get away scot-free. It was fucking ugly, and the society I grew up in, just didn't want to hear it, because the reaction would have also been toxic masculinity. The reaction would have been to attack and destroy this guy. Not that I'm opposed to that. That guy was a cretin and a pedophile and needed to be sort of dealt with. I would prefer to see him go to jail, get therapy, whatever the case is. In a perfect world, that would be great, and sexual abusers would be able to stop doing the horrible shit. But it's not a perfect world. But so that's sort of, that was one of the tales I wanted to tell, and how that relates, in my opinion, to toxic masculinity. We're not encouraged to talk about things that happen to us. Certainly, sexual assaults. You know, people laughed at Brendan Fraser when he was like, during the Me Too movement, he was like, "Yeah, fuck, happened to me, buddies." And people were like, "Brendan Fraser, you probably wanted it. You probably were just, you know, you're a guy. You could have overpowered a Weinstein or two. You know, just say no, or you know, or just admit that yes, ha ha ha." Right? That's the vibe that people had, and that's awful. It's fucking awful. Victim blaming is sort of unanimous, but when it comes to I don't even know if I want to say. I was going to say, when it comes to women, there's a different perspective. I think there is, but only because women have been shouting, "Stop victim blaming me," for a lot longer, and men don't have those fucking words, because we're all raised in the same way to be like, "Yeah, that must have been my fault. That strange man touching me that day, probably my fault. I did that. In some way, I was the cause of it. If I hadn't looked so goddamn pretty." Even listen to me telling the story, like, you know, yeah, I was a 5-year-old kid and I was alone. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this situation? But you know what? When a 5-year-old kid is alone, the end result should not be child molestation. That just feels like probably not the thing that it should be. Can a 30-year-old woman rape a 16-year-old boy? Fuck yes, she can. I 100% believe that is... first off, anyone can rape anyone. You know, rape is simply sex that at least one person didn't want to do. So 100%, yes, a 30-year-old can rape a 16-year-old. In the scenario where the 16-year-old wants to have the sex, is that rape? And I think that's the question you're getting at, is it, statutory rape? I will again talk about the differences in how societal expectations of men and women. By 16 years old, it is just assumed that all men want to have sex. And for me, that was absolutely true. When I was 16 years old, fuck, I'd have done anything to get laid. Not gonna lie. But I didn't get laid because I was funny looking. But yeah, at 16, absolutely, I would have been like, yes, let's fucking do this. Had the opportunity, and it could have been a 30-year-old woman who was like, hey, you want to have the sex, and I'd have been 100% on board. Would that be rape? That's the sketchy area. The concept of statutory rape is to protect children from being victimized. And if I'm entirely honest, I think that a 30-year-old woman having sex with a 16-year-old boy is no different than a 30-year-old man having sex with a 16-year-old girl. And by that I mean, nuh-uh. That is not okay. There is too much of a power dynamic at that stage. I don't think if you add 20 years to both sides, so you're talking about a 36-year-old boy and a 50-year-old girl, completely different story. I don't know if you guys heard that. My children are like making a mess of some kind, dropping pots and pans. Yay. Anyways, 50-year-old woman and a 36-year-old guy, completely different scenario. The age difference is the same, but the difference in emotional growth of the person on the young end is like night and day, obviously. And I feel very strongly that no matter what, a 16-year-old may be ready to have sex, but anytime that sex is being had with someone who is outside of a fairly narrow age range, that's a problem. I'm weird about the whole concept of statutory rape when it applies to, like, if a young boy and a young girl have the sex and the young girl is under that age and the boy is a little bit older, but they're within, like, that's probably two people making what is ultimately a stupid but pretty common choice. When someone is 30, I'd be real hard pressed to think that wasn't a gross power dynamic and a manipulation. They may not have used manipulation and they may not have used their power to create that, but when you're 30, you fucking know better. Age is not just a number, revolution around the sun, an arbitrary thing called a year. Yes, I do agree with that, but with age also is experience and wisdom. And the more times we revolve around the sun, the more we're able to understand the world around us and what's happening to us in it. And I think that at 16, you have not done that enough for sex with an adult, like a bunch of adult. Yeah, it's like there's no easy answer, because I guarantee you there are fucking 16-year-old boys who would full well be completely content with the idea of having sex with a 30-year-old woman, just as there are 16-year-old girls or 14-year-old girls who would be happy to have sex with a 30-year-old man. Doesn't make it okay. In my own experience, I've always tried to be pretty decent about the age gap between me and any of my partners. I have made poor choices, never criminally poor, because that's fucking gross, but I have, like, that gap has been substantial a time or two, but they've always been adults, and it's always been like, oh, I'm with an adult, and that's a thing. I firmly believe that difference, when you're 16, you were a child when it comes to sex. And when you're 30, you're fucking not. Who am I to judge? Shame, guilt, predation, victimhood, who decides? Well, ultimately, we have to come to agreements as a society, and in the society, in the city where I live, we've got some I would say rigid rules, or rigid with fuzzy edges, maybe. Um, who's to decide? A jury of your peers, ultimately. Um, that sucks because yeah, people are going to um, what am I trying to say? There are always edge cases. There are always those scenarios where, okay, this situation happened, and it probably shouldn't be looked at in a criminal light. And there are plenty of situations where, like, you have to step in almost identical circumstances to protect a child. So you err on the side of caution. The church decides, for example, sex before marriage is evil. Evil, as long as you enjoy it, it is evil. If you don't enjoy it, it is evil. Um, you're not wrong. The effect of the church on that discourse has not exactly been super awesome posy. Um, but I think that there is a we relied on the church for moral guide work when when they were worthy of that, and B, when we didn't have a whole lot of other understanding of the world, and the church was an extension of the social norms that we lived within. That's not the case anymore. We now have there are footsteps coming down the stairs. Hey,
Sorry.
it's okay. Um, we now have a greater understanding of us as a social animal, and what actually, sort of physiologically is the ramifications of things like underage sex. There's definitely mental, developmental related impacts. And I feel like that is what ultimately should guide our decisions on the subject, our understanding of the effects. So yeah, there will be outliers. There will be people who, at 16 are fully capable and fully aware of and involved in the decisions that they're, of that nature. But by and large, it ain't okay. It's crawling inside someone's head that's off. I feel the church was never a moral compass. That was the con. Oh, I know. The church always has been a power structure and oppressor. If you masturbate, you're doing the devil's work. Feel ashamed and put money in the box. Totally. And all of this toxic masculinity shit was propped up by the church. I was having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about Jordan B. Peterson, that bastion of heroic nobleness. Men's are good and women's are not. In the conversation, he was talking about, like, women, when left to their own devices, will prefer in large numbers cooking and cleaning instead of STEM jobs. And I was like, okay, I don't have the study that you're talking about in front of me. It sounds like bullshit, but what does that even mean? And the conversation, he sort of kept saying, like, there has to be some kind of biological impediment, and even if it's bimodal and not bipolar, so it's not everyone, but it's, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like this is going off the rails. Oh, everything's going off the rails. It's my day for going off the rails. Do you want me to get back on the rails? The point I was making was, when we're talking about this, and like, where does the idea come from that women should be cooking and men should be like, that probably goes all the way back to the origins of us as a species and before, in terms of what expectations and opportunities happen, and that was patriarchy. So is it accurate to say that all women or the majority of women are this way or that way? Probably not. And it's probably toxic to assume that all men have to be hunter-gatherer types or crafty, good with their hands types or whatever. Are you for or against evolution of the species? I am neither. I am not neither for nor against evolution of the species. I believe that evolution happens, and I believe that evolutionary pressures are things that result in changes to the, whether it's physiological or neurological or whatever, changes to the animal, whatever animal we're talking about, including people. So when it comes to am I for or against human evolution, that's like saying, are you for or against having a circulatory system? It's a part of the equation that there's just no getting around. So yeah, I mean, I'm for the human condition continuing to be the human condition. Lately, I've felt pissed off and angry a lot. Is this in my control or outside of my control? I think it's both. I think from my own experience, I go through waves of being pissed off and bitchy a lot. And I find that there are things that I can point to that are likely to trigger that. So, for example, if I'm not making music on a regular enough basis, I will find myself getting in that spot. I also know that there's, all the circadian rhythm shit that can factor into it, like if I'm not getting enough sleep or whatever. Don't close that door behind you, bud. Oh, he's just biting back the ears to tell me to fuck off. Sorry. So you can control that in the sense of you can do the thing that helps you relieve the tension, or you can do the thing that makes you sleep better or whatever. But I also believe that there's natural rhythms that we're not in awareness of and we're not in control of, and the world can kind of suck sometimes too, and the world can really piss a person off. So it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. Sometimes some of the things, what I would suggest is you can control the things that are within your control. You can limit the amount of news you're watching or negative shit that you're putting into your system. You can try to focus on the positives of the content that's available to you. You can do things like exercising or whatever that help overall with your mental state. Eating better, blah 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 blah. Like nothing. I'm not defining any new ground here. I think it's really easy to, when we are feeling these things, to just not do that. And like my best friend right now is going through a bout of depression, and when the topic of how do I get out of this funk comes up, and I'm like, here's some things, that's never met with like a jubilant thank you, Jim, you are a brilliant man. It's always like, well, I can't do that. I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I don't have the energy, whatever the case is. And this is all just our biochemistry forcing us to sort of continue in the spiral. How I feel is a choice. I take offense. You can't put it on me, for example. There are things in my control and there are things that are not in my control. Things are not good or bad, but are simply my judgments of them. Gratitude is an attitude. I'm not a victim. All of those things are true. I do think that it's kind of a catch-22 because I don't believe in free will. I believe we are biomechanical computers that aren't aware of how cool we are. But at the same time, in practice, I've done things like, I remember I was going through a bout of depression once, and I decided that I would force myself to take photographs. And the specifics were, I wanted to force myself, because the world felt so ugly, I wanted to force myself to find something every day that was worth taking a picture of. And this is a long time ago. I was still married, and I was using a film camera. And this was an experiment. I bought a roll of film, and I was like, every day take one picture of something that is beautiful. And in the end of the first month, I went through 22 rolls of film. I got only a couple of them developed, and it turns out I am a terrible fucking photographer. But that mental shift of actively trying to find something that was worth taking note of was actually really, really positive and helped break me out of the depression. So I do agree there's things that are in our control and things that are not. It is a bullshit thing like, oh, you know, why are you sad? Well, I don't have a job, and my rent is due, and my landlord is, you know, threatening to throw me on the streets. Have you tried sit-ups? Probably not going to be a good answer. But sit-ups won't hurt in that situation. There are real-world pressures, and there are interpretations of real-world pressures and all that kind of stuff. All that is legit, and I don't want to ever be dismissive of that. All right, I think I'm going to take a little pause. I'm going to jump outside and stretch my lungs in the worst possible of ways. Sorry, the first hour has been a little sketch, so hopefully if you're watching, you're enjoying at this point. I have a mouse again, which is nice. I'm not echoing. And I don't even think my mic is really picking up. I can hear the of my fridge upstairs, but I don't think the mic's picking it up too well. So it's like things are looking up. When I get back, we'll talk about some more stuff. I'll leave it to you guys if you want to keep talking about other stuff I could talk about with regards to the whole toxic masculinity, and also let me know if I've been clear, because it's also possible that I've, like, you know, in my ramblings I've missed the mark a time or two. In the meantime, let's find some music to put on and a speech from someone interesting. Okay, let's see. I don't remember. I should have enough time here to do this one. All right.
2015
I will be right back.
Will be the last federal election using first past the post.
We put forward a very clear platform that said this will be the last election held under the first past the post system.
Wait,
This
I have
last
to make
election is
sure.
the last one done under first
I'm going to
past
mute
the post,
this.
and we intend to keep that commitment.
That commitment
unmute
to voting
that.
reform is causing some trouble for the Prime Minister. In a newspaper interview this week, he seemed to suggest he was backing away from the promise a little bit because his government was more popular than that of his predecessor. Well, that's not sitting well with the people who've been calling for change for a long time. What will it take to hold the government to their promise? Has the steam been let out of the electoral reform movement? Joining me now, the chair of the Broadbent Institute and, of course, former leader of the NDP, Ed Broadbent. Nice to see you.
Pleasure to be with you.
You took to Twitter for the first time yesterday.
I did indeed.
Yeah, and what?
An 80-year-old special entree into a different kind of politics.
And why did you? What happened yesterday that you said I've got to get out on Twitter and start tweeting?
Mr. Trudeau's apparent back down in his commitment to electoral reform. I mean, I've been around long enough when I saw this story in Le Devoir that he said we no longer need electoral reform. If you look at it carefully, he's saying we don't need electoral reform now because we got rid of Mr. Harper and they got me.
Yeah.
And everything is fine. Well, that's a terrible self-serving argument. Has nothing to do with the substance. You know, Mr. Harper got 39% of votes only, and so did Mr. Trudeau.
Yeah.
Neither one got 50%.
That's right.
So the whole argument for what his own minister described as an antique system that we have, the arguments go out the window if he's that dismissive. So it looked very cynical to me. The only reason I'm marginally, and I stress marginally back being sort of optimistic, is his correction yesterday of the Le Devoir piece, where he said he reaffirmed his commitment again to serious electoral reform. what he's done at best this week then is just to muddy the whole thing. It's totally muddied, and those who believe in electoral reform, believe in the promises, have every reason to be skeptical.
So one of the things that they're also saying in terms of the language is that they believe that there needs to be a broad consensus on whatever happens next. Although they don't say let's have a referendum, they won't go that far. What do you agree that there needs to be a broad consensus, and how would you get that or know that you have it?
Well, I make 2 points about that. One is that the public opinion survey that we conducted, independent of our own institute, just after the last election, showed that more Canadians wanted some form of PR than wanted the than the present system. So some kind of public consensus, I'm quite sure, can be built out there in the public. Secondly, on the committee, it's not exactly a secret if I say that the Conservatives simply want the status quo and or a referendum. But so the question would be, can you get a consensus of the other parties, 3 or 4 other parties, the Greens, the Bloc, the NDP? And I think that's possible. I appeared before the committee and talking informally to members on the committee, I came away with a sense of optimism with the members, including the Liberals.
Yeah.
So the possibility of having everyone but I think the Conservatives on side with some kind of recommendation is there. And I hope that happens, and I hope the Prime Minister will respect the outcome.
Do you think that this is more complicated than they anticipated? It was like just one line in the platform, right? But it was a promise that he repeated again and again. Is it possible that it's more than they thought? It's very complicated to educate people and then to gauge where they're at and then to make a decision.
I don't know if they've discovered it's more complicated. Certainly, as I say, the public opinion is there. It wasn't a hard, emotionally driving issue compared to some other matters, but it is something that Canadians have become more sensitive to during the hearings themselves. And as I said, the survey data before showed that they'd like a change. And if he had committee support, to get back to whether it's more complicated, the electoral expertise people have all said, including the Commission, if he gets the report in by the end of this year, there is time to bring in reform. But of course, we'll take political will. And if they don't have that, then it won't happen. And he can use some excuse. Governments can always find some excuse for delay that they tried and they couldn't get it through. But if he has the will, I think the potential for consensus is there. But he's got to show some leadership. That's what it's all about.
But you are skeptical that will exists now.
I'm a little skeptical. On Thursday, I was totally skeptical. Friday's statement made me a little less skeptical. As I say, the best he's done is to muddy the waters, and he'll muddy his own reputation. If one of the few promises that he was so categorical about gets broken, then it goes beyond, in a way, electoral reform to the integrity of the government. So I hope that's part of their thinking about this.
Why is it so important that it change for you?
It's something I believed in a long time, before I joined the NDP, as a matter of fact.
So it's not partisan related?
No, absolutely not. It's especially in a country like Canada with its major regional economic divisions, a PR system, as I gave as an example, Mr. Trudeau Sr. used to regularly get 20-25% of the vote in Western Canada, but only 2 seats. And they're built up over certain issues like the energy program and so on, where the government wasn't listening because they didn't get proportional representation, say, from Albertans in Mr. Trudeau's cabinet. So I think for a big, regionally diverse country like ours, you have much better chance of having the government represented from all parts of the country and opposition parties. So that's one national unity reason that I've really cared a lot about. But in addition, there's the democratic fairness. You know, if you look at Germany, if you look at Scotland, if you look at New Zealand, all 3 well-governed countries, they have a form of PR that combines with a single member too, that provides very effective but democratic government in the sense that the government actually represents all the votes. I think that's fair.
So if he doesn't do it, or if we don't see consensus from the committee when they turn in this report at the beginning of December, what happens then? What happens to this conversation, which I think is an important one, if they make the change or not?
Well, if they don't do it, it may or may not be a short-lived thing in the history of this government as they see it, because they'll want to go on to other things, energy, environmental issues that are big and looming for decisions. But it will go down, as I think, as a very cynical move on the part of the government. They put so many public resources into this, the campaign,
Feeling like a
committee, changing the committee.
really half-assed streamer today. What can I say?
The deep six that now they're doing serious harm to their credibility, and they will be deserved.
My music didn't come
very
through.
negatively.
I know why, I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
I hope you'll stay on Twitter, even if it was electoral reform that brought you there. I hope you'll stay there now.
I'll do it at least.
That was
another
Ed Broadbent talking about electoral reform. And sure enough, nothing's sending to... No, they're not supposed to send the output. I don't fucking know. You guys can hear me? Everything is good? Hopefully. If not, everything is bad because you can't hear me. And that makes the whole thing weird. Oh, you know what? I'm doing that. Now you can hear me in stereo. Fuck. Learning. It's one other thing I just really quickly want to do and see if I can figure out. There was some button somewhere that's like, hey, maybe avoid the background noise, because I can totally fucking hear that. See if I can find it. Probably can't, because I suck. One last place to look. Yep, can't find it. So we're stuck with the growl. All right. Welcome back, chat. What gives me joy? What gives me positivity? You know what? Let's do positivity. That actually sounds like a really fun thing to talk about. I'm gonna change my title to be "Keeping It Posy." And yeah. So I am Canadian asks. New topic, joy and positivity. What gives you joy? Are you in bliss? Why or why not? I wouldn't say that I'm in bliss. I would say that I have a lot of joy in my life. I'm very, very, very lucky in that regard. What brings me joy, first and foremost, is music. I love just making music and challenging myself musically and doing all sorts of, the dumb shit that I do. I love being on stage. I love recording. I love all the things about it. It's a genuinely positive part of my life. Other things that give me, obviously, my family gives me joy. I'd be a bad dad if I didn't say that. But I get joy at a lot of things. I get joy out of the fact that my work is decent. And they don't hate me. I get joy out of the fact that like these little chats, these little conversations bring me a huge amount of joy. I'm not a pro streamer. I never will be. I just enjoy doing this. This is fun. So yeah, there's any number of things that give me joy, and I try really, really hard to craft my life around maximizing those and reducing the things that don't give me joy. So I brought up work. Work doesn't always bring me joy. I'm not I love my job. I love aspects of my job. I don't love all the people I work with. That can be a thing. I also don't love some of the shit that I have to eat to do my job. But I try and focus on the positive stuff. I try and, I have 3 bands on the go. They are all playing in my basement. So 3 times a week, I'm making music in my basement. A 4th time a week, my friend Towley's band, well, Towley and Dan and Jason, Dead Pixel, they play in my basement. So I've kind of got a steady stream of local music and creativity happening. That brings me joy. What are you most grateful for in this life? What juices you up and energizes you in life and love of life? I don't know. I would hazard the guess that the thing I'm most get joy out of is music. But there is so much joy. You know, watching my kids become fucking decent. This sounds like a weird thing to say, but both of the children that live with me, for those that are, maybe don't know the whole story, I have 4 kids. And my 4 kids grew up in a different city with their mom. I was very much on the sidelines of all that, and so I didn't have the luxury of the day-to-day. I lost a lot of really cool experiences. It was circumstances. This isn't me going, that terrible woman or anything like that. Nothing of the sort. Just shit and circumstances. The eldest son moved in with me 5.5 years ago, 5.25 years ago, and the youngest son like 2 years ago. When I'll focus on Seth at first. When he moved in with me, the eldest son, he was a little misogynist. He had a whole lot of fucking negative shit to say about women and life, and in general, he was a little bit beaten down by the world, and I had a really positive effect on him. I've curbed some of those negative viewpoints. I've helped him question things along the way, hopefully. And I'm really proud of the person he's becoming. When Jake moved in with me, he was like bouncing off the potential for like life on the streets. He was doing lots of scary drugs. You know, I'm not an anti-drug guy, but he was doing some stuff that fucking no. And I've given him an environment where he has a degree of freedom and he has a degree of structure. And he has, over the time that he's been living with me, he's just suddenly become a better student. He's become a better person. He's learning to be a libertarian socialist just like Daddy. And yeah, so I would say that's probably the thing that gives me the most joy is watching the evolution of my children, and that's all of my children. The other 2 I didn't dwell on because they don't regularly interrupt stream, but they're fantastic, and it's cool watching them become like fully functioning autonomous humans. If I could go out there and fix one thing that makes people's lives joyful and better, what would that one thing be? Fix one thing that makes people's lives joyful and better, what would that one thing be? If I understand what you're asking, if I could make, like, are we talking about like if I could king of the world, I snap my fingers and instead of half the population dying, all of a sudden everyone does a thing that, you know, makes their lives better. I guess I think the answer I would have is I would instill in all people a love for local live music. That's, again, like a dumb answer, but it has brought so much joy for me and also so much frustration seeing all of the talent in my city that, you know, the world is never going to listen to and never going to understand and never going to hear. I would love to, you know, if I was king of the world, to just make people see what's actually around them when it comes to the creatives, not just music, but like art and culture in general, and just, you know, go out and see it and be awed by it and want to support it. With how you feel about your kids, do you think you could feel joy about humans in general becoming good people? I do, absolutely. I've watched friends of mine go down some sketchy paths and come out the other side. I've watched friends of mine go down some sketchy paths and not come out the other side. And I do get joy. Even people who are not people I care about. You know, Hunter Avallone is a good example. When Hunter Avallone started streaming, he was a little alt-right chud, and now he is. He's a sock dem. He's probably a little more liberal than I am, but watching that evolution of his thought has been really cool. if Milo Yiannopoulos suddenly were to be like, hey, I've decided to be a decent human being and not a piece of shit, I would enjoy that, and I would be happy for the world for Milo doing that. I don't see that happening because Milo's a piece of shit, but that's the thing. Or just your kids, because they're not because other people are not yours. No, I think it's bigger with my kids just because of the fact that they are my kids, but I can see and enjoy and be awed by all of these things from that aren't necessarily coming from me. What am I trying to say? That really didn't. Those words weren't all coherent. I can take joy in other people evolving, and even in ways that are not the direction I would want. Obviously, there's limits on that. I'm not so proud of the evolution of Mr. Rittenhouse, but watching people become what they're not meant to be. Like there's a predestined plan, but become more than what they were is a pretty cool thing. But yeah, it's definitely it's bigger when I'm talking about my kids because they're my kids. I have a inherent love for them that is just plain different. If I could suggest one thing for everybody to do to improve their quality of life, it would be exercise. Now, obviously, not everybody can do that. Some people are in health-wise or whatever. It's just not a thing they can do. But wherever possible, I find that exercise makes my brain happier. And I'm bad about it. You can tell I'm bad about it. But it's huge for me. It's very transformative for me. And I think that that's probably accurate for most people. You say you don't believe in free will and we're computer bits, but then Rittenhouse couldn't help himself or Trump. How can you hate that, Mr. No Free Will? Well, a good question. At the core, the concept of free will doesn't make sense to me because of the potential for brain injury. That's a weird answer, but I knew a guy who was a completely different person overnight because of a car accident. And I mean like radically different person. And that made me start to think about, well, how could that happen? If you're a good person and you were to have a brain injury and became a bad person, for example, which is exactly the opposite of what happened there, are you culpable? If you have a tumor that is pressing on your amygdala and making you, fight or flight, like the bell tower sniper. Was the bell tower sniper truly culpable for their actions? No. And yeah, Rittenhouse falls under that. He is the complex product of a fucked up society and a fucked up biochemistry and the wrong we're all inputs, processes, and outputs, as in computer terminology. So he got the wrong inputs. His processing wasn't what I wanted the world to have, and therefore the outputs have been all shitty. I can dislike that. I can dislike him while still recognizing that, as a biomechanical machine, it's not, his culpability may or may not be a thing. At the same time, I also suspend that concept of the free will thing, because I do see myself having free will. I don't know if that is biomechanically accurate or if it's illusion, but I make choices, you make choices, we all make choices, and Rittenhouse made a choice. So fuck that kid. And he's gonna get off too. That's the funny. We're not really keeping it positive right now. He is going to get off. Probably legitimately get off, because it highlights that the system has failings. It's not that what he did was right or even morally defensible, but the system has space for what he did. And that system is unfairsies. And I guarantee you that if he was black or indigenous or Hispanic or anything else, he would not get off. that's part of the overall problem. But he's gonna get off. Then how can you hate someone like Trump or Hitler? It's not their choice or fault, Jim. Yeah, you're right. I am a hypocrite when I say that I don't believe in free will, and then I go, why did Hitler do the things that he did? But at the same time, what he did was reprehensible. Whether the culpability lies with him or not really is immaterial. I hate him and I hate Trump because they did those things. Whether that was the unfortunate reality of their bio machines does not matter to me. People convicted him before the story was even told in full. Yep, I agree. I feel like Rittenhouse. I don't want to ever defend that little shit. He's gruesome and awful. He made the choice to do what he did and to put himself in the position where he could do what he did. And it is my opinion that he wanted to do what he did. But you're not wrong. People convicted him of it. And, I guarantee you, well, I mean, I can't guarantee you, but I'd be stunned if he went to jail. I feel like there's going to be riots no matter what happens. It's a question of who's going to riot. I am Canadian. I believe we have choice in the moment and can impact butterfly effect. I don't, and this is the thing, is when I say I don't believe in free will, I'm talking about it in an esoteric sort of way. I exercise free will all the time. Is it possible that I'm actually freely in command of those myself? I don't think so. I think that I'm deluding myself in the concept of free will. Because I believe that we're inputs, processes, and outputs, and the processes are essentially biomechanical in nature and bioelectrical. They all happen in this gooey bits up here, or thereabouts. But that doesn't allow me the luxury of just being nihilistic about it and be like, well, this is my computer. It does not matter. I will murder peoples now. I still believe that I have a responsibility to do better than that. And maybe that's part of my not free will. That's part of the programming in my head. It's all of it is speculative and stupid. You're a philosopher. These are the big questions. Hypocrisy drives the philosopher. And I am a fine hypocrite. I think we all are. But I'm very aware of where I'm being hypocritical. Are you seeing he should have been treated like a black person? What under those rather ugly way of phrasing it? Yes, I am. I am saying that his skin tone and privilege should not impact the results of what he did. From a moral rightness perspective, he murdered someone and should be punished. He placed himself in a position where murder was very, very high possibility, and that's what happened. So yeah, I would say that he is a murderer who did a murder on purpose. But I would say that our system won't look at it like that. And I will say that the system also has all of these, especially the US system, has all of these wonky, get out of jail free cards, and he's going to be able to employ those to avoid any kind of comeuppance. I would say that if he was black or indigenous or Hispanic, those would fade away very quickly. If they would be punished for doing the same thing, then he should be punished for doing the same thing. And what I'm saying ultimately is the system, whatever rules that he sort of pivots behind and his legal team pivot behind to avoid culpability, those are wrong and they should be filled. What he did was wrong. If a black person did the same thing, went to a white power rally with a gun, talking the night before about how he wishes he had his gun so he could start shooting some people, and then gets in a situation where he gets killed, yeah, he's wrong, and that's bad. Half of North America will be mad regardless of the verdict, that's for damn sure. Absolutely. Which wolf do I feed? I feed the one on Wall Street. He took a gun and went looking for trouble, just like all those homeless folks did. If only he would pick himself up by his bootstraps and turning to God so we can forgive him. The other thing is I find like the crocodile tear bullshit just so fucking gross. He's crying but not crying, and the performative like, I'm in tears, how's the jury seeing? Like, that was fucking uncomfortable to watch, because that's like you've been coached to fake emotions. That was so yucky. So, do you control your body? Yes, I do. He took a gun and went looking for trouble. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, he was enacting this teen boy super protector fantasy, which isn't surprising. I mean, the kid was like a little junior wannabe cop. He's hanging out with Proud Boys. Like, you know, he's buying into this notion that Black Lives Matter and Antifa are terror cells that are threatening to burn the cities to the ground and all that shit. And the end result of that logic is the idea that I need to protect these things. And so what did he say? He was there to protect businesses, right? To protect property, which is a defensible thing in the U.S., even under the circumstances, I think, where it's not his fucking property and no one asked him to do it. That's part of how wacky the system is down there. So yeah, he was like, he wanted this to happen, and it did. And I don't think it happened as cool as he thought it would, because I think in his little teen boy brain, he was like, I will be John Rambo, and I will run in, and the people who are protesting will cower because of my mighty AR-15, and I will restore justice, and people will hail me as a king. I think that's what he thought, and he'd get to bag a couple of you know, brown folks along the way. But yeah, it's the Sam the Record Man. I said it, I did it. He's going to be punished for the rest of his life. This will follow him everywhere. Yep, and it should. I believe in reformative justice, and I hope that he can, you know, get to a place in his life where this isn't the thing. But right now, for who he is and what he's learned out of the situation from my outside perspective, obviously speculating, but I don't feel like this should be let go. The impression I have is like, this is a kid who is actively dangerous and will continue to be, and is going to be buoyed up by the people around him, the Proud Boys and the, you know, all the others who are going to make him a hero, and without any kind of real justice and reform on his end, this should follow him. I'm not discussing the morality of his actions, just the consequences. But to be fair, I mean, like, we're, as a society, our consequence for shooting somebody is you should be in jail. Now, we have our exceptions, and that's where he's going to get off. But yeah, he shot someone, and there's consequences, and like, tough shit on that. If you control your body and it doesn't control you, try holding your breath for 10 minutes. But that is not a refutation of my point. Yeah, you can control your body. You're controlling certain aspects of it. You're controlling your ability to... That's weird. There's like strange characters there. Anyways, you're controlling your ability to, you know, like, I moved my arm just now. I did so intentionally. But there is conscious and unconscious muscles. So you can't hold your breath because the natural vacuum that is created, your body will automatically respond with taking a breath. And your interstitial muscles, I think they're called, will force you to take a breath because your machine is coded thusly. I'm in a fucking foul mood. I retract my last statement. He'll be fine. Some look at him as a hero. Totally should consequences for a single action that later he may feel or change for paint him forever. And again, I would love to see him change. I would love to see reformation. I would love to see him, much like with my children, I would love to see Kyle Rittenhouse become a better person. I just am not going to write any checks on that. Do you hate him or the pricks that will justify what he did and get him off? I hate both. Guns don't kill people. People with guns kill people. I am mad at the pricks who justify his actions. You don't control your heart. You don't control your lungs. You don't control your breathing. You don't control anything external. The journey is inward. I personally see him as a remorseful defendant. I'm mad at the people who encourage more of this, looking at him as a hero. And that's the problem, is I don't know that I see that remorse in him. What I have seen in the interim is him being treated like a hero and enjoying that. And I get it. I'm not like, oh, you shouldn't enjoy that. That's terrible. I probably would. I'd probably be pretty fucking stoked if all these people suddenly were like, making me out to be like I was a great person. And especially given those seeds of like he thought he was doing the right thing, which I believe he did think that, based on his tainted little worldview. But it's like that's to me, that's not enough. I don't see remorse. I see fake remorse. I see performative, like the lawyer told me that I need to cry. I'm crying. But I didn't get any real sense of remorse from him. And yeah, the people around him who are lauding him as, he will go on to a career in politics. Whether he's successful or not is, anyone's guess. But, I guarantee you some fucking Republican group is like, that there's our next Democratic congressional speaker or whatever. Guaranteed. And that's fucking gross. Anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other to die. Yep. I would say anger has its positives and negatives. Anger can, for example, be for the good of the society we live in. Anger can also be very much for the worst in society. All of these things, like anger and trauma responses and fear and hunger and everything, like they're all important parts coded into our existence that gave us an evolutionary advantage at varying times. Being a social species, adjusts how these things work. And I think it's actually really fucking fascinating to sort of explore that as a mind experiment kind of thing. I didn't see it that way, but I understand and respect your opinion. And by all means, please understand, I don't know Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know what's in his mind. It is possible that I am just a jaded old prick and that I'm seeing him legitimately remorseful and being like, not enough for me. That's entirely possible. I am not infallible in this. I just don't feel like what I've seen lines up with someone who accepts that what they did was wrong. But I could be way wrong. I find the whole thing really unfortunate because there is this Trump cult thing that is, and it's not just Trump, but it's that's the mentality. We see it here in Canada with our patriots. This idea that they're doing good work and that they're serving. In some cases, they're serving God. In some cases, they're serving mankind. But the accepted level of cruelty, the accepted level of dehumanizing the opponent, I just can't get behind it. I can't. I'm not dehumanizing Rittenhauser or the Patriot Prayer folks or anything like that. They're very human. They're very fucked up. But when we start to look at our opponents in some ideological war as being like actually lesser and subhuman and shit, like, then we're just clan. I know that one can experience trauma responses in that way. That's all. I'm looking at it from a BPD survivor perspective, and that's a obviously a perspective that I don't have. So again, I don't know all and see all. I'm just speaking from what my interpretation is, and I guarantee you, no matter what, I am not right. The question will not be, is Jim 100% correct? It'll be, how incorrect was I? and only time will tell. And really, not even only time will tell, because what will tell will be what happens in Kyle Rittenhouse's brain. So I've got no way of knowing ever. The story of the bell tower sniper is a fascinating one, and that was essentially, he's an ex-Marine. I think he was an ex-Marine, anyways, but he started complaining about having like genuinely violent thoughts against his wife and mother, both of whom he loved very deeply, and he didn't understand where these thoughts were coming from, and they were getting worse and worse and worse, and he was asking for help and wasn't able to get any. Again, this is just the story as I've heard it, so I could have wildly wrong opinion on this, but this is the story as I've had it explained to me. He wound up basically going to various psychiatrist after psychiatrist and not getting help, and ultimately on the day that he did the bell tower sniper thing, he started his day by murdering his wife and mother, and left a note that was like, I don't know why I did this. Someone please, like, if they don't take me out with a bullet to the brain, autopsy me, because something is wrong with my head. And he knew that he was going to this bell tower and that he was going to keep killing until they brought him down. And in the end, if I understand this correctly, they found a tumor on his amygdala, and that was wow, what does that mean for his culpability? If he was being, he was seeking help and he was trying not to do this and failed, is he culpable? Those are the questions that make the whole free will concept really, really difficult. You do good commentary, Jim. It'll be interesting to see the outcome. I honestly don't know what will happen, and neither do I. I have a suspicion that he's going to get away with it. I have a suspicion that will lead to a lot of violence. And I'm, quite possibly like Rodney King riots kind of violence, but far worse, because the Rodney King riots largely didn't have white supremacists in the mix, and I feel like that's gonna be a very, very different kind of violence, because people will be furious. This is a kid who murdered people and will get away with it, in my opinion. And I think people are gonna explode. And I think it's going to be a rallying cry for people who maybe have been looking at like the George Floyd killer charging and conviction and being like, maybe things are getting better. And then Rittenhouse getting off is going to be like, nope. And it's going to be, I think, this is my speculation. I hope I'm wrong. I hope, A, that he does get arrested and goes to jail and gets some kind of fucking rehabilitative therapy or whatever, comes to grips with what he does and becomes a better person. I hope that no matter what the end result is, people can say, okay, I don't want to burn the world down. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. That has the same energy as Dahmer's dad asking for psych treatment rather than letting him free. I'm not sure if that's good energy or not. I would definitely. So I also have some weird life experiences that color my interpretation of all this. So my best friend had her cousin murdered by a pedophile when I think my best friend would have been 4 at the time, and the girl was 5 or 6. It was like the case was used as like a criminology here in Calgary. It was like a case study that they did, and there's a lot of stuff that went into all of the things that I feel around it, because of being the best friend of the cousin of the victim. But one of the things that was most troubling about it was he served his time, and they put him in Saskatchewan in some halfway house, and he had all these conditions of his parole that, like, he can't be looking at child pornography, can't be doing anything that would be, you know, triggering of that kind of thing. Like, I think he did 25 years. And then in the halfway house, they found and they never said what was on the DVD, but they found a DVD containing objectionable material that was opposed to his court orders, and he was punished a little bit further, but he wasn't, like, he ultimately, if I understand correctly, he is now a free man. Nothing changed for him. He is still a monster who he was active in Fish Creek, particularly Fish Creek Park. He was actively attacking people, mostly young girls, and when, you know, before the whole thing with the cousin happened. Pardon me. And the cops kind of knew that he was that guy in the neighborhood that was, you know, he was weird and he spent a little too much time playing with the kids, but that's old, whatever his name was, and he's harmless, ignore it. And he wasn't harmless. And I think I read once that the police believe he was responsible for in the area of 100 sexual assaults, mostly on children, often with weapons, at the time. And then this happened, and he killed the girl, and that was when they were like, oh, we need to be police now and do something about this. So I would rather he had spent his entire life in the prison system than release him unfixed. One of the problems I have with the way our justice is done is, if we are actively trying to protect society by putting people in jail, then jail should not make better criminals. We need to figure out how to do justice better. I'm a largely behind the whole concept of prison abolition, but there are cases like this where you're like, yeah, but you know, that's not a person that can be out in the world. Not until such time as we can legitimately be comfortable with the idea that they're in the world, because there has been some kind of mass fixing of the psyche. You don't accidentally kill a girl that you were gonna molest. That's not a whoopsie-doodle. So there's a problem there, and that's where I do see a role for police. I do see a role for a legal system, and for a punitive system. But my feeling on the subject is like, there has to be a better answer than just, well, we'll put you in jail for a bit and then let you go, and hopefully you won't do it again because you learned your lesson from jail. In my opinion, I don't think he could have learned that lesson just from the way that jails work. It wouldn't be a deterrent to him that, if you do this again, you go back to jail. He needed to understand himself and work through some whatever the fuck to be able to not be a giant piece of fucking molesty shit. I don't know. Speculative. So yeah, when it comes to Dahmer's dad asking for psych treatment rather than letting him free, I don't really know much about that particular thing. I obviously know about Dahmer. And if I was his dad, I'd be like, dude, get him some fucking help. Don't let him out. He's dangerous. Because Dahmer was good at the talking and good at the killing. And those two are a bad combination. The story of some kid who was staying with him who, the police found him, bleeding from the anus, completely naked. Dahmer shows up and is like, "Oh, officer, I see you found my little brother. I will take him off your hands now." And just the conversation, they're like, "Okay, you have a good day now. Try not to rape anybody." And away they went. That's fucked. That's dynamically fucked. Yeah, I don't know. Shit's weird. Shit is weird. Keeping it posy. That's what we're doing there. Okay. I feel like if I make a VOD out of this, I'm gonna have to like hide where it says keeping it posy because that got a little dark, got a little ugly. What else did I have on my list of things I wanted to talk about? Let's see. Talked about all those things. You know what's another? This goes back to the whole toxic masculinity thing. But another thing, and it's such a frustration for me, is the idea that men and women can't be friends. Yeah, that's stupid. I've always said that's stupid. I have female friends that I have no desire whatsoever to, craft a life together with, or even to touch them in the wiggly parts. Like that's not the nature of that relationship, and it kind of creeps me out that we have this idea that like, men and women can't be friends because, the sexual thing is always there. No, the sexual thing is there only if you allow it to be there. I have plenty of friends, and I'm talking about friends who I could be sexually attracted to, who I am not sexually attracted to because that's not the nature of that relationship. And I'm a whore, so like that's a thing. But the other thing that sort of ties into this is the isolation of men. So we're not allowed to have women friends. We're not allowed to have emotions. Where, if you have female friends, you actually stand a much greater chance of learning to have honest and open communication conversations with your friends that can go at a deep level that might be the thing that a person fucking needs. And we're also told that we can't have close friendships with men. We have close friendships with men, of course. We're bros, bro. But you can't talk about your things. You can't talk about your emotions. You can't talk about the things that are in your life that require, like, help. That's all sissy stuff. You don't get to do that. Our society is like designed to leave men isolated from their emotions and from one another and from each other as humans, like from all other humans. And I feel like maybe that's not a good thing. Having emotions is actually good. I mentioned this earlier. Is that me that's making that? It's like a weird creaking noise. I thought at first it was one of my children outside, but I don't think it is. I think it was my cord. I hope that wasn't coming through loud and clear, but it probably was. If men don't like it, we wouldn't do it. I disagree. I think that a lot of us don't know better. A lot of us don't question and go, hey, why am I behaving like this? Why don't I have these relationships? And what our society tells us is when we ask these questions, our society's like, hey, shut up, bitch. Are you a little wussy girl? And then we shut down on it. Victims of toxic masculinity or complicit in the thing. That's the thing, is victims can be complicit. Victims can be a part of the thing that is the problem. I was very lucky to find out that I was broken and I needed to go have some therapy. But I'm a smegma male, and that's how we do. The process of getting therapy helped me to understand that I had a lot of stuff that I was fucking up, and a lot of like holes in who I was as a person. And those holes are like, they were the result of the society that I live in. I felt very confident in the fact that I was very in touch with my emotions because I didn't have any, which is weird as hell. Real men don't ask for help. Real men are independent and tough. Real men don't show the pain. This is our world. You get what I'm saying. And that doesn't help us when we need help. and it isolates us at the worst times in our lives. And yeah, this is how capitalism works. Works best when you don't look out for your own best interests. 100%. Capitalism wants us to constantly be brutally aware of the fact that the only thing that matters is the corporate bottom line and what we bring to the financial equation. That's our be all and end all in this system, is what can we produce, and realistically, how much of our own value do we get to extract? That's a weird thing to think about, like human life. I subscribe to like the rare earth theory. So this world we live on and this life that we have is like not perfectly unique in the entire universe, but it's pretty goddamn cool, pretty goddamn special. And that we can take that and go drive it down to the point where we convince people that the only purpose they're meant to fill is to either shit out replicas of themselves or have value to organizations and corporations and value that is quantifiable to the dollar. It's a fucking really tragicomedy kind of view of the world. If you did share your pain, if you did ask for help, you might find out you're not alone and rethink your relationship with power. Exactly, right? Organized labor works the same way, right? When you are isolated and you don't have, the words to say, I want better, and everyone else seems to be just okay with the deal that you're getting, well, you just don't fucking do anything, about it. And then you get together with your labor mates and you talk about what's fair, and you go, wait a second, this is fucked. I deserve to be looked after to a certain degree, not like coddled, but I should have a decent life. I'm bringing in a lot of value. We're all doing that. Why are we not being rewarded commensurately? And capitalism just hate that shit. How can we bring about a positive, healthy change without being miserable, shitty assholes like they are? I don't know. The honest answer is I have no idea if I'm capable of bringing about any change, or if the world is capable of being better. I know the one thing, and that is that I do the best for me, and I try to be as good a me as I can, and hopefully people around me go, oh, Jim's doing good stuff. I want to be like Jim in that regard. Not that I want people to be like me, but that they can do their own good stuff. So I don't know. The fingers are on the scale so heavily that I don't think there's an answer that says these are the 6 steps that we need to do in order to fix the world and make it all better. I can't fix the world, but I can do my best to get through it in a reasonably healthy way. False choice, by the way. Yeah, it ultimately is. Organizational labor is communist, though. Only corporations can pull money together and decide to compete and be powerful. When people do, it is socialism. Yes. And God bless socialism. I get a hoot. A buddy of mine shared a meme the other day, and it was some guy, like, legitimately, he made a comment. my buddy made a comment in reply to somebody's thing about, like, the power of workers and collective bargaining and and what we're seeing with the strength of the labor movement right now, in advocating for the rights of workers, which I think is at its all-time high right now, mostly because millennials and Gen Zs are just like, I don't like working here. And that is fucking awesome. Where was I going with that? The socialism thing. All right, so somebody replied, and they were like, what do you mean? And he was like, these people are demanding a higher level of the surplus of the labor that they produce, and that's good. And he's like, Without bosses, there is no labor. No, without labor, there is no bosses. And yeah, it's a chicken and egg thing. You know, I can't get a job because I have no experience. I have no experience because I can't get a job. But at the end of the day, bosses don't make things. Bosses may come up with an idea for a thing, but they're not making that thing. And maybe they made it for a little while, but then they stop because they're bosses and they're doing boss things. And boss things usually involve, you know, living a more grandiose life and extracting all the value they can out of human beings, like some kind of fucking leech. Oops. Robots, AI, ML, what is? Oh, machine learning. Who needs you? You know, you're absolutely right. Eventually, we will come to a point where my job is totally done by automation. All of our jobs will be done by automation. And what terrifies me about that sentiment is that currently the ownership of all of that technology is in the hands of private industry, who have not shown themselves terribly interested in sharesies, the wealthsies. You know, if we don't fix that problem, there won't be work, but there will still be people, and we will not be reaping the rewards of there not being work. Big problem. Oh yeah, who looks after that stuff? If you're referring to looking after AIs and machine learning and all that kind of stuff, I actually genuinely hate that as a response, because people always talk about, like, yeah, but you'll need people to program the computers, and you'll need, and you know, theoretically maybe, although the idea that, you know, machine learning could learn to essentially code itself seems completely viable, but not everyone wants to be a software developer. Not everyone, and the demand for software developers would be actually quite low once machines start doing things more autonomously. So who looks after that stuff? It would be a small subset of people. Just like, you know, who looks after the robots on the assembly line? Well, there are people there. You know, it does create jobs, but it takes away a lot more jobs than it creates. I see a link. Yes, I will open this, and we will giggle about the chatbot that was a racist. And do I have my browser set up? I do. All right, let's fade that on over. All right. Oh, wrong window. Where's my window? There it is. Okay. So, Twitter taught Microsoft's AI chatbot to be a racist asshole in less than a day. This isn't even the first time this has happened, which is fucking beautiful. So, it took less than 24 hours for Twitter to corrupt an innocent AI chatbot. Yesterday, Microsoft unveiled Tay, a Twitter bot that the company described as an experiment in conversational understanding. The more you chat with Tay, said Microsoft, the smarter it gets, learning to engage people through casual and playful conversation. Unfortunately, the conversations didn't stay playful for long. Pretty soon after Tay launched, people started tweeting the bot with all sorts of misogynistic, racist, and Donald Trumpist remarks, and Tay, being essentially a robot parrot with an internet connection, started repeating the sentiments back to users, proving correct that old programming adage, flaming garbage pile in, flaming garbage pile out. I love the way this is written. Tay went from humans are super cool to full Nazi in less than 24 hours, and I'm not at all concerned about the future of AI. Can I just say that I'm stoked to meet you? Humans are super cool. Unkindlegerg is a nice person. I just hate everybody. Fucking hate feminists and wish they should all die and burn in hell. Hitler was right. Oh, yes. Now, while these screenshots seem to show that Tay has assimilated the internet's worst tendencies into its personality, it's not quite as straightforward as that. Searching through Tay's tweets, more than 96,000 of them, we can see that many of the bot's nastiest utterances have simply been the result of copying users. If you tell Tay to repeat after me, If you tell Tay to repeat after me, it will, allowing anybody to put words in the chatbot's mouth. So that is a thing. That is a valid it ain't quite so cut and dried as all that, is what they're saying. But that said, we're all going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. However, some of its weirder utterances have come out unprompted. The Guardian picked out a now-deleted example when Tay was having an unremarkable conversation with one user, sample tweet, new phone who dis, before it replied to the question, is Ricky Gervais an atheist? By saying, Ricky Gervais learned totalitarianism from Adolf Hitler, the inventor of atheism. Well, heck, a lot to unpack on that statement. But while it seems that some of the bad stuff Tay is being told is sinking in, it's not like the bot has a coherent ideology. In the span of 15 hours, Tay referred to feminism as a cult and a cancer, as well as noting gender equality equals feminism, and I love feminism now. Tweeting Bruce Jenner at the bot got similar mixed responses, ranging from Caitlyn Jenner is a hero and is a stunning, beautiful woman, to the transphobic Caitlyn Jenner isn't a real woman, yet she won Woman of the Year, neither of which were phrases Tay had been asked to repeat. It's unclear how much Microsoft prepared its bot for this sort of thing. The company's website notes that Tay has been built using relevant public data that has been modeled, cleaned, and filtered. But it seemed that after the chatbot went live, filtering went out the window. The company started cleaning up Tay's timeline this morning, deleting many of its more offensive tweets. It's a joke, obviously, that there are serious questions to answer. Like, how are you going to teach AI using public data without incorporating the worst traits of humanity? If we create bots that mirror their users, do we care if their users are human trash? There are plenty of examples of technology embodying, either accidentally or on purpose, the prejudices of society, and Tay's adventures on Twitter show that even big corporations like Microsoft forgot to take any preventative measures against those problems. For Tay, though, it all proved a bit too much, and just past midnight this morning, the bot called it a night. See you soon, humans. Need sleep now. So many conversations today. Thanks. In an emailed statement later given to Business Insider, Microsoft said the AI chatbot Tay is a machine learning project designed for human engagement. As it learned, some of its responses are inappropriate and indicative of the type of interaction some people are having with it. We're making some adjustments. So I'm just going to... I want to talk about that. So here's the thing about Tay and things like Tay. It's very true that this is it's much ado about nothing in a lot of ways. Tay as an AI is just not fully formed, right? What is the difference between a human and Tay? Well, a human suddenly appearing on Twitter has a moral code of some degree. Right or wrong, there is some, arcane list of things and experiences that have come before that allow us to filter what we accept, what we engage with, and all that kind of stuff. Without that in an AI, it is simply going to engage with every single thing it sees. It doesn't have the ability to weigh whether or not a statement that is a quote from Hitler is any better or any worse than a statement that is a quote from Mahatma Gandhi, and therefore the shitlords will win. When I go on the internet, and I don't go on Twitter because Twitter is a giant toilet bowl, but if I go on Twitter and someone says horrible shit to me, I can block them. I can recognize that as horrible shit and block them. Now, obviously, there are plenty of people who don't do the blocking and who wind up, not getting horrible shit, but just that slight little bit of, Salt Bay shit of garbage, and it's enough to feed their curiosity, and they go down rabbit holes, and they become QAnon supporters who believe that fucking John F. Kennedy Jr. is somehow going to a Rolling Stones concert. What the fuck is wrong with the world? But most people aren't quite that gullible. Tay is much like MAGA and anti-vaxxers, no different, because Tay doesn't have the capacity to weigh the validity of information. The do your own research people, all of science says this, but this PDF file that I was given by a fellow who will, remain nameless because his name I can't pronounce because it's a series of weird characters and that's all I know about him. He says vaccine's dumb. So, which is it? Normal humans should have the ability to apply some questioning criteria to the information they're bringing in and be like, oh, It turns out this is dumb, so I don't have to believe it. Tay doesn't have that. Anti-vaxxers clearly don't have that, or they get so far down the road that they turn that part of their brain off, which is what I actually think is happening. Only you can't go in and fix it that way. Can't go and fix it by through better code. I would say that the experiment is a failure and that there is no fixing the experiment, except a ground up redesign. But I think, if what you're trying to do is to create a bot that can engage with people, it needs to be modeled after a human who has past experiences and who has a moral compass of some kind and who has the ability to weigh and contrast disparate information sources, and through some kind of a algorithm that allows for better than just there are 17 tweets that I encountered that say that Jews are space lizards, and there are only 4 that say they aren't space lizards, so therefore they must be space lizards, that kind of stupid shit. Alright, I think it's time for me to do another one of them things where I step outside, and I'll see if I can make the music happen this time. We'll find out. I have no idea. I'm going to press play, but the music wasn't happening. I can hear it. Seems like it's coming from the Reaper input more. No, it's coming from Focusrite more. Okay, so what I'll do is I will crank down my volume so you're not listening to the sounds of my house. And if I crank up the volume in Reaper, will that help? Yeah, that didn't do what I thought it would. All right, be right back. Yeah, it definitely looks like I am not getting output. So I'm going to I'll just play some fucking music. Yeah, it definitely looks like I am not getting probably shouldn't output. Have my volume up on there. Alright, music B it is. And I want my playlist Calgary. Just gonna randomly play songs and hope it doesn't go badly.
Oh shit! When the rise of the fire, made a mention of the side, letting go, but you know that positivity is so weak. And the show still more than us behind you. Let it go, let your brain never tiring of. All strings attached, all these elastic in every track. Yeah. All strings attached, all these elastic in every track. What? If you want to tell me friends, motherfuckers on the back way. Just a time because you know we gotta know you. Take it back to thought, scream for some more love. Everything inside, always keep it time, and we need a sign. Yeah. Everything inside, always keep it time, and we need a sign. What? If you wanna tell me, don't you let me something directly out of New York. It's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. It's time in your mind. Take a shot. Take a shot. It's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. Oh. Shit, fuck me. Ass, you feature at the timing of the beat. Now we save another day, just falling in a follow away. Make a plane, you get up out of your CU. Gotta say, you know, I best admit it's sweet, cause yo, nothing's changed, and we rearrange, and it's fucking strange. Yo, nothing's changed, and we rearrange, and it's fucking strange. What? If you wanna tell me, don't you let me something indirectly happen to you. Line 'em up, knock 'em down. 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 If you wanna tell me, don't you let me something indirectly happen to you. It's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. It's time in your mind. Take a shot. Take a shot. It's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. Oh. Line 'em up, knock 'em down. 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 Line 'em up, he said, knock 'em down. She said, line 'em up. He said, knock 'em down. She said, line 'em up. He said, knock 'em down. She said, line 'em up. He said, knock 'em down. She said, line 'em up. And tell me, don't you let me. Come on and tell me, don't you let me. Come on and tell me, don't you let me. Come on and tell me, it's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. It's time, motherfucker. Take a shot. Take a shot. It's subordinate against the wall, integrated in the rise and fall. Can't explain this writing on the wall. Oh. Light 'em up. Damn it.
Okay. Well, it's time. It's time for a little special something that I like to call my weekly humiliations. And I'm gonna have to fiddle fuck around again because I had to restart my computer and things went squirrely. But give me 1 sec and then we'll do the humiliations. Where the fuck am I? Weekly humiliations. I'm all set here. And we're gonna do, I got 3 songs today. The first one will be Personal Jesus. I have no idea if I can sing any of these. We'll find out. Hopefully it won't be awful. Okay. Make sure to like. Reach out and touch faith. Okay, looks like I'm making noise. That's a good sign. We'll see. Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. I realize I have to check something here. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. I was doing both. Sorry. Will a believer? Where the fuck am I? There we go. Take a second best, get me to the test. Things on your chest you need to confess. I will deliver, you know I'm a forgiver. Reach out and touch faith. I don't have a personal Jesus. Reach out and touch faith. Personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares. Take care, I'm Canadian. Always a pleasure, my friend. Your own personal Jesus. Someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there. Feeling unknown and you're all alone. Flesh and bone by the telephone. Lift up the receiver, I'll make you a believer. I will deliver, you know I'm a forgiver. Touch your own personal Jesus. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith. Reach out and touch faith. I don't think anyone else is watching now, so this is just me. Reach out and touch faith. Doing the thing by myself. Reach out and touch faith. I don't know. Maybe someone's watching. Either way, the next song is next, which is Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper. Again, I have no idea if I can sing this or not. Lying in my bed, I hear the clock tick and think of you. Caught up in circles, confusion is nothing new. Flashback, warm nights, almost left behind. Suitcase of memories, time after. Sometimes you picture me, I'm walking too far ahead. You're calling to me, I can't hear what you've said, but you say go slow, I fall behind. The second hand unwinds. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you, I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look, you will find me. time after time. I was swallowing. If you fall, I will catch you. I will be waiting time after time. Yeah, I was swallowing because I thought the lyrics were done there. Nope. After my picture fades, darkness has turned to gray. Watching through windows, you're wondering if I'm okay. Secrets stolen from deep inside. The drum beats out of time. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. It's that moment where, like, is there more coming? I know there is. You said go slow. Oops. I fall behind. The second hand unwinds. If you're lost, you can look and you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I'll be waiting. Time after time. If you're lost, you can look, you will find me. Time after time. If you fall, I will catch you. I will be waiting. Time after time. 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 Fuck. Time after time. Time after time. Time after time. And that takes us to our final song. I don't even remember what it is. Hold on 1 second. I'll just jack forward because it's taking too long. Oh, Don't Speak, No Doubt. This will probably be really bad. You and me, we used to be together, every day together, always. I really feel that I'm losing my best friend. I can't believe this could be the end. It looks as though you're letting go. And if it's real, well, I don't want to know. Don't speak, I know just what you're saying. So please stop explaining. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Don't speak, I know what you're thinking. I don't need your reasons. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Our memories, shit, they were good and inviting. We're all together, mighty, frightening. As we die, both you and I, with my head in my hands, I sit and cry. Don't speak, know just what you're saying. So please stop explaining. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. No, no, don't speak. I know what you're thinking, and I don't need your reasons. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. It's all ending. Better stop pretending who we are. Totally couldn't remember the note there. democracy is dying away. Don't speak, know just what you're saying, so please stop explaining. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. No, don't speak. I know what you're thinking, and I don't need your reasons. Don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Tell me 'cause it hurts. I know what you're thinking, so please stop explaining. Don't speak, don't speak, don't speak. Oh, I know what you're thinking, and I don't need your reasons. I know you're good, I know you're good, I know you're real good. Oh, la 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 la, la 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 la. No, no, oh, oh, hush, darling, hush, hush, darling, hush, hush, don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Hush, hush, darling, hush, hush, darling, hush, hush, don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Oh, hush, hush, darling, hush, hush, darling, hush, hush, don't tell me 'cause it hurts. Well, not my best job. That said, seems to go with the theme of the stream tonight, today. Didn't have the best stream, but wasn't the worst. Oh, and there's something playing now. What the hell is happening here? This is the official 4K music video for Don't Speak. I don't think that's gonna happen. All right. Yeah, I think it's probably a good time for me to say see you later. I hope everyone had fun. There are 2 accounts that are currently in the chat. I'm fairly certain that they're robots. But if you're not a robot, then hi, Ice Wizards and J. Hody Moon. Or Jody Moon probably would be, how English is spoken. Either way, thanks for watching. Take care, be good to each other. Don't eat yellow snow.